A long, long time ago, in a land far away, there was a man named Isaiah. This man, known as a prophet, held a special role in society. He was not a king, a soldier, or a tradesman. No, Isaiah was a messenger, but not just any messenger. His task was to share messages straight from God. In this ancient time, God did not send emails or text messages. Instead, he chose people like Isaiah to speak his words. And one day, Isaiah had a particularly important message to deliver. He sought out King Ahaz and told him of a prophecy he had received. According to Isaiah, a special child would soon be born. This child wouldn't be just any baby. This child would be a sign from God himself, a beacon of hope in uncertain times. The baby would be called Emmanuel, a name that means God is with us. Just imagine a baby that symbolized God's presence among his people. But why was this prophecy so important, you might ask? Well, this was no ordinary forecast of the future. This prophecy was about the birth of someone truly special. This baby was to be Jesus, the Messiah. The Messiah is a title that means the chosen one. And Jesus, as the Messiah, was chosen by God to save his people. The prophecy may have been a surprise to King Ahaz, and perhaps he didn't fully understand its significance at the time. But we know now that what Isaiah foretold came to pass. Jesus was born, and his life and teachings have indeed changed the world. This story of Isaiah's prophecy is more than a tale from long ago. It's a reminder of God's plan, a plan that included a baby named Jesus, who was born in a manger, grew up to teach love and kindness, and ultimately changed the world. And so, Isaiah gave the first hint about the coming of a special baby who would change the world. Isaiah wasn't just about prophecies, he also shared messages of comfort. Now let's dive into one of Isaiah's most soothing messages. This is a story of reassurance and love, a story of how God, in his infinite wisdom and care, looks after his people. Imagine, if you will, a shepherd. This shepherd is not just any ordinary shepherd. He is diligent, kind, and caring. He knows each of his sheep by name, recognizes their bleats among 1,000 others, and even the most timid lamb feels safe under his watchful eye. His staff is a symbol of protection, warding off predators and guiding his flock through treacherous terrain. When a lamb strays, he leaves the 99 others to find the one that is lost. He cares for each one as if it was the only one. Now imagine that the shepherd is God and we are his sheep. This is the picture Isaiah paints in his message of comfort. Just as the shepherd knows his sheep, God knows us. He knows our joys and our sorrows, our triumphs and our trials, our dreams and our fears. He is there when we take our first step, and he is there when we stumble and fall. He is there in our laughter, and he is there in our tears. He watches over us just as the shepherd watches over his sheep. Like the shepherd, God guides us through life's challenges, and when we stray, he patiently brings us back. He protects us from harm and provides for our needs. He comforts us when we are scared and heals us when we are hurt. He loves us more than we can ever comprehend. This comforting message from Isaiah tells us that God is not distant or indifferent. He is a loving and caring shepherd who is actively involved in our lives. He cares about our every need, our every worry, our every tear. He loves us unconditionally and wants the best for us. So remember, in times of trouble, we are never alone. In times of trouble, Isaiah reminded everyone that God is like a caring shepherd. Isaiah also spoke of a servant who would suffer greatly. Picture this. A servant who, instead of being honored and respected, would face mistreatment and misunderstanding. A servant who wouldn't retaliate, nor would he voice his complaints. Sounds unusual, right? But Isaiah's prophecy was indeed about such a unique servant. This servant wouldn't be like any other. He wouldn't be one to rise against his tormentors, nor would he seek revenge. Instead, he would bear the burdens of others, taking upon himself the sorrows and pains of the world. Imagine a person so selfless, so full of compassion, that he would willingly endure suffering just to alleviate the suffering of others. Now you might wonder, who could this servant possibly be? Well, this prophecy of Isaiah was about none other than Jesus. Yes, Jesus, who is revered and loved by many, was once this suffering servant. He was the one who willingly faced mistreatment, who willingly bore the sorrows and pains of others. And why would he do this, you might ask? Because of his immeasurable love for us. He chose to suffer so that we wouldn't have to. He chose to die so that we could live. Such was the depth of his compassion. Such was the extent of his sacrifice. These words of Isaiah, spoken centuries before the birth of Jesus, painted a vivid picture of the trials and tribulations he would face. But they also highlighted his kindness, his selflessness, his unwavering commitment to humanity. This prophecy, like a beacon in the night, guided people towards understanding the true nature of Jesus. It served as a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable suffering, kindness and compassion can prevail. It served as a testament to Jesus' love for us, a love so profound that it led him to become the suffering servant. Isaiah told everyone about a servant who would carry our pains, and that servant was Jesus. Remember this, for it is a tale of love and sacrifice, a tale of the suffering servant who gave it all for us. Now, let's jump to another story about a different prophet, Jeremiah. This story takes us to a time when Jeremiah was led by God to a place we might not expect, a potter's house. Picture this. Jeremiah, standing in the dusty doorway, watching as the potter sits at his wheel, his hands covered in clay. He's forming a pot, turning the clay round and round, shaping it with skill and precision. But even with the potter's experienced hands, something goes wrong. The pot doesn't turn out right. Perhaps it's lopsided, or maybe there's a crack that appeared out of nowhere. Now, you might think that the potter would be frustrated, right? Maybe he'd toss the pot aside and start anew. But that's not what happens. Instead, the potter takes the flawed pot and begins to reshape it. He doesn't discard it. He doesn't give up on it. He makes it into a new, beautiful pot. Isn't that an incredible image? This scene that Jeremiah witnesses, it's not just about a potter fixing a pot. It's a metaphor, a symbol that God uses to teach us something important about himself and about us. You see, we are like that clay pot. Each of us in our own way is a work in progress. Sometimes we make mistakes. We mess up. We're human after all. But here's the thing. Just like the potter with his clay, God doesn't throw us away when we mess up. He doesn't discard us. No, he does something far better. God reshapes us. He takes our mistakes, our flaws, our failures, and he uses them to make us into something new, something better. He turns our mess-ups into masterpieces. And why does he do this? Well, because he loves us. Because to him we are precious, we are valuable. We are worth saving and worth reshaping. So if you ever feel like that flawed pot, if you ever feel like you've made too many mistakes, remember the potter and his clay. Remember that you're in the hands of a loving God who can turn your mistakes into something beautiful. Just like a skilled potter, God is patient. He doesn't rush the process. He takes his time shaping us, molding us, making us into the best versions of ourselves. It might not always be comfortable. It might not always be easy, but it's always worth it. So, let's take a moment to appreciate this profound lesson from the potter's house. Let's remember that no matter how many times we mess up, no matter how many times we fail, God is always there, ready to reshape us, ready to make us into something beautiful. Just like the potter with his clay, God can reshape us into something better. Jeremiah had another important message to share. Let's dive into it, shall we? In the heart of Jeremiah's story, we find a promise of a new covenant. Now, a covenant isn't just any ordinary promise. It's a sacred agreement, a bond of trust and commitment between two parties. In this case, the covenant was between God and his people. Jeremiah, being God's messenger, was given the task to deliver this divine promise. Picture him standing tall, speaking with conviction, his voice echoing across the lands. "The days are coming," he proclaimed, "when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and Judah." This wasn't going to be just a repeat of the old covenant, the one God made with their ancestors when he took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt. No, this was going to be something different, something new. God was promising a future where his laws wouldn't just be on stone tablets, but written directly on the hearts of his people, a future where everyone from the least to the greatest would know him directly, a future filled with a deep personal relationship with God, where everyone could call upon him and he would answer. But perhaps the most remarkable part of this new covenant was its emphasis on forgiveness. "I will forgive their wickedness," God promised through Jeremiah, "and will remember their sins no more." Picture that. A promise of complete forgiveness, of wiping the slate clean, of starting anew. It's like receiving a gift you didn't even know you needed until it was offered. This story of Jeremiah and the new covenant isn't just a tale from a bygone era. It's a story that resonates with us even today, touching on themes of hope, forgiveness, and unconditional love. It reminds us that no matter how far we may stray, no matter how many mistakes we might make, there's always a way back. There's always a chance for a fresh start. It tells us about a God who is ready to forgive, ready to forget our sins, ready to write his laws on our hearts, and ready to establish a direct personal relationship with us. It's a story that paints a picture of a God who loves us so much that he is willing to enter into a new covenant with us, a covenant of forgiveness and love. So, as we reflect on Jeremiah's message, let's remember the promise of the new covenant. Let's remember that we are loved deeply, and that we are forgiven fully, and that we are never too far gone to start anew. Through Jeremiah, God promised to forgive us and love us no matter what. And that, my friends, is a promise worth holding on to. These stories, though ancient, still speak to us today. They are more than just tales from a book. They are lessons of faith, hope, and redemption that transcend time. Let's take a moment to reflect on the wisdom we've gathered from these narratives. First, we journey through the prophecy of Isaiah. This story taught us about the coming of the Messiah, a beacon of hope and salvation. It reminded us of the power of faith, of believing in promises yet to be fulfilled. The prophecy was a message of hope, a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel for the people of that time. And it remains so for us today. Even in our darkest hours, we can find comfort in the knowledge that we are not alone, that there's a divine plan at work, and that brighter days are on the horizon. Next, we delved into Isaiah's comforting message of God as a shepherd. This story painted a picture of a God who is not distant or indifferent, but one who tenderly cares for his flock. It showed us a God who leads us to green pastures, who restores our soul, who guides us along the right paths. It was a touching reminder of God's unwavering love and care for us, his children. We learned that no matter how far we may stray from the path, God, like a shepherd, is always there, ready to guide us back. We then explored the narrative of the suffering servant. This story was a poignant portrayal of sacrifice, of selfless love that knows no bounds. It taught us about the price of our redemption, the immense love that led the servant to bear our iniquities and carry our sorrows. It was a stark reminder of the depth of God's love for us, a love so profound that he was willing to suffer for our sake. This story calls us to emulate this selfless love in our interactions with others, to be willing to bear one another's burdens, and to love without expecting anything in return. Our journey continued with the story of Jeremiah and the potter's house. This narrative presented an allegory of God as the potter and us, his creation, as the clay. It taught us about God's sovereignty and his ability to reshape and remold us into something beautiful, even when we feel broken or marred. It was a powerful lesson on second chances and the transformative power of God's love. We learned that just like the clay in the potter's hand, we too can be shaped and reshaped into vessels of honor, no matter our past mistakes or failures. Finally, we reflected on Jeremiah and the new covenant. This story was a promise of a new beginning, of a relationship with God etched not on tablets of stone, but on the tablets of our hearts. It was a testament to God's unwavering faithfulness, his willingness to forgive and to make all things new. This story taught us that God's love is not contingent on our performance or our ability to keep the rules. Rather, his love is unconditional, steadfast, and it compels him to draw us closer to himself, to write his law on our hearts, and to remember our sins no more. Through these stories, we have seen a picture of a God who loves us deeply, who cares for us tenderly, and who is willing to go to great lengths to redeem us. We have seen a God who is patient, forgiving, and full of mercy. And we have seen a God who, like a potter, can take our mistakes, our failures, and our brokenness and turn them into something beautiful. These narratives serve as a reminder that no matter what we're going through, no matter how difficult or impossible the situation may seem, we are not alone. We have a shepherd who guides us, a servant who suffered for us, a potter who shapes us, and a God who loves us unconditionally and forgives us completely. So let's carry these lessons with us as we navigate through life. Let's remember to have faith in the promises yet to be fulfilled, to lean on our shepherd in times of need, to love selflessly as the suffering servant did, to allow ourselves to be reshaped by the potter's hand, and to embrace the new covenant of a relationship with God written on our hearts. Remember, just like in these stories, God is always with us, loving us, caring for us, and ready to turn our mistakes into something beautiful.
Once upon a time, a man named Elijah was feeling very scared and alone. Elijah, a faithful servant of God, found himself in the wilderness, fleeing from those who threatened his life. His heart was heavy, his spirit was low, and he felt like he was the only one left who still believed in God. In his loneliness and despair, Elijah sought refuge under a broom tree. He prayed to God, expressing his deepest fears, his darkest thoughts. It was in this moment of vulnerability that something extraordinary happened. You see, God didn't leave Elijah to face his fears alone. No, he showed up for Elijah, but not in the way you might think. We often imagine God's voice to be loud, booming, and grand, echoing from the heavens. But that's not how God chose to speak to Elijah. There was a great wind, strong enough to shatter mountains and break rocks, but God was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was a fire, but God was not in the fire. And then, after all that noise and chaos, came a still small voice, a gentle whisper that cut through the silence. It was in this quiet, humble whisper that Elijah found God. It was in this whisper that God comforted Elijah, reassured him, and let him know that he was not alone. This story teaches us a profound lesson. God is always with us, even when we feel alone. He's there in our darkest nights and our deepest fears. He's there in the quiet moments and the gentle whispers. And sometimes that's where we find him the most, in the still small voice that speaks to our hearts when we least expect it. So remember, even in our scariest moments, God is there, whispering words of comfort and love. Now, let's journey with Elijah once again, but this time to a place far, far beyond the clouds. In the ancient times, there lived a prophet named Elijah. He was a man of faith, courage, and conviction. One day, something extraordinary happened. Elijah was about to embark on his most mystical journey yet, not by boat, not by foot, but in a chariot of fire, drawn by horses of fire. Now imagine that. Elijah was swept up in this divine blaze, a chariot not of this world, but of a heavenly realm. It was a sight to behold, a spectacle full of awe and wonder. And who was there to witness this grand event? Elijah's faithful protege, Elisha. Elisha saw his master taken up into the heavens, and he cried out, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen!" Such a sight was more than just a celestial spectacle. It was a testament to the power of God, a proof of his divine majesty, and a demonstration of his mysterious ways. What can we learn from Elijah's heavenly journey? It's that the ways of God are full of wonder and mystery. His plans are not always what we expect. Sometimes they are beyond our comprehension, beyond our wildest dreams, but they are always, always perfect. Elijah's journey tells us that God can take us places we've never imagined. He can lift us up, not just metaphorically, but literally beyond the clouds, beyond the stars, into his heavenly realm. All he asks for is faith, courage, and conviction, just like Elijah. Elijah's story is a reminder that our journey on earth is temporary, and our true home lies beyond. It teaches us to trust in God's plans, to embrace His divine mysteries, and to always keep our faith strong and unwavering. So the next time you look up at the sky, remember Elijah's fiery chariot. Remember the wonder, the mystery, and the divine power of God. And remember, just as He had a plan for Elijah, He has a plan for each one of us. Isn't that amazing? God's plans are always surprising and more wonderful than we could ever imagine. Imagine a time when the people of Judah had to leave their homes and travel to a faraway land called Babylon. Let's take a journey back to a period in history that was incredibly challenging for the people of Judah. The kingdom of Judah, once prosperous and free, found itself under the rule of the mighty Babylonian Empire. The people were forced to pack up their belongings, say goodbye to their homes, and embark on a long, arduous journey to an unfamiliar land. This was the time of the exile to Babylon. Life, as the people of Judah knew it, was upended. They had to leave behind their beloved homes, their cherished temples, and their way of life. They were thrust into a foreign world, far from everything they knew and loved. The vibrant streets of Judah were replaced with the strange sights, sounds, and smells of Babylon. The laughter and joy that once filled their homes were now replaced with longing and sorrow. But why did this happen, you may ask? The people of Judah had strayed from their faith. They had forgotten the teachings of their forefathers and had started to follow a path that was not in accordance with their beliefs. This led to their downfall and exile. Yet in the midst of the sadness and hardship, there was a glimmer of hope. Yes, they were in a foreign land, far from home, but they remained together as a community. They were able to lean on each other for support, comfort, and strength. They found solace in their shared experiences and began to understand the true meaning of unity and perseverance. The exile was a challenging time indeed, but it was also a time of learning and growth. The people of Judah learned the importance of staying true to their beliefs and values. They realized the significance of unity, resilience, and faith in the face of adversity. They understood that even in the darkest of times, there is always a spark of hope, a beacon of light guiding us towards better days. The story of the exile to Babylon is not just a tale of loss and despair, it is also a story of resilience and faith. It is a testament to the human spirit and its ability to endure, to learn, and to grow even in the toughest of times. The people of Judah may have lost their homes, but they never lost their faith or their hope. In our own lives, we too may face challenges and hardships. There may be times when we feel lost, confused, or overwhelmed. There may be moments when we find ourselves in a proverbial Babylon, far from everything we know and love. But the story of the exile to Babylon teaches us that we can face these challenges with courage and faith. We can learn from our experiences and grow stronger, just like the people of Judah did. Even in tough times, remember, there's always a lesson to be learned and growth to be experienced. No matter what we're going through, there's always an opportunity for growth and learning. So when faced with a challenge, let's remember the people of Judah and their journey to Babylon. Let's remember their resilience, their faith, and their ability to find hope even in the most difficult times. And let's use their example to inspire us to face our own challenges with courage, faith, and hope. Now imagine the joy and relief when the people of Judah were finally allowed to return home. The people of Judah had experienced years of hardship in Babylon, but their story didn't end there. As the sun set on their time in exile, a new day was dawning. A day filled with hope, promise, and a journey home. The Persian king Cyrus had issued a decree. He had been moved by something greater, something divine, to allow the people of Judah to return to their homeland. It was almost as if the winds of change had whispered in his ear, guiding his actions. And so it was time for the people of Judah to pack up their belongings, their memories of Babylon, and set forth on their journey back home. As they prepared to leave, there was an air of excitement, a buzz of anticipation. Their hearts were filled with joy and gratitude, their spirits were high, and their hopes were even higher. As the people made their way back home, they didn't just journey through the physical landscape. They journeyed through a landscape of emotions, too. There were moments of joy and moments of sorrow, moments of looking back and moments of looking forward. But through it all, their spirits remained high, their faith remained unshaken. When they finally reached their homeland, it was a sight to behold. The land they had once known was now in ruins, but even in its state of disrepair, it was beautiful to them. It was home. The people of Judah got to work, rebuilding their homes, their temples, their lives. They worked tirelessly, driven by the promise of a fresh start, a new beginning. As they rebuilt, they sang songs of praise, their voices echoing through the valleys and the hills, a testament to their unyielding faith and resilience. This return from exile wasn't just about a physical journey. It was a spiritual journey too. It was a testament to the power of hope, the power of faith, and the power of divine mercy. The people of Judah had experienced years of hardship, but they never gave up. They held on to their faith, they held on to their hope, and in the end, they were rewarded with a new beginning. This story is a reminder to us all, a reminder that no matter how hard things get, no matter how long the night, there's always hope for a new beginning. There's always the promise of dawn after the darkness. It's a reminder that God is merciful, that He sees our struggles, hears our prayers, and in His time, He makes all things new. So, as we journey through life, let's remember the people of Judah. Let's remember their journey from exile to home. Let's remember their faith, their resilience, their hope. And let's remember that no matter what we're going through, no matter how long our night, there's always the promise of a new day, a new beginning. No matter how long the night, the dawn will break, so always hold on to hope. Have you ever dreamed of something so amazing that it left you wide-eyed in awe? That's what happened to a man named Isaiah. One day, Isaiah found himself standing in a place like no other. It was a grand and magnificent place, so beautiful and awe-inspiring that it's almost impossible to describe. This place was not on earth, but in the heavenly realm where God resides. Imagine the grandest and most stunning palace you've ever seen. Multiply it by 100, and you're still not even close to the majesty of where Isaiah found himself. This was the throne room of God. In this room, Isaiah saw God sitting on a high and lofty throne. The hem of God's robe filled the entire room, signifying His power and authority over all things. Above God's throne, Isaiah saw seraphim, angelic beings with 6 wings. With 2 wings, they covered their faces. With 2, they covered their feet. And with the remaining 2, they flew. These seraphim were calling out to each other, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of His glory." The sound of their voices was so powerful that it caused the doorposts and thresholds to shake. Imagine how Isaiah must have felt witnessing such a display of divine majesty and power. He was in the presence of the Almighty God, witnessing His holiness firsthand. Overwhelmed by the grandeur of God's holiness, Isaiah realized his own unworthiness. He cried out, "Woe is me, for I am lost! For I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." But God, in His mercy, sent one of the seraphim with a burning coal taken from the altar. The seraph touched Isaiah's lips with the coal, symbolizing the purification of his sins. Then he heard the voice of God asking, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" With a cleansed heart and a newfound courage, Isaiah responded, "Here am I, send me." And just like that, Isaiah was commissioned by God to go and deliver His messages to the people. This vision that Isaiah had is a reminder for all of us. It tells us that God is huge and holy. He is greater and more wonderful than anything we can ever comprehend. His majesty is beyond our understanding, and His holiness is perfect. God's greatness can sometimes make us feel small and insignificant, but remember, it's the same God who loves us and has a special plan for each of us. Just as He had a mission for Isaiah, He has a mission for you too. So let's remember, kids, God is bigger and more amazing than we can ever imagine. Wow, what an adventure we've had, journeying through these incredible stories. We've traveled through time, seen miracles, experienced sorrow and joy. and learned a lot along the way. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. In our first stop, we met a man named Elijah who taught us about the still small voice. Remember how he found God not in the wind, nor the earthquake, nor the fire, but in a still small whisper? That's a reminder to us all to slow down, to listen, and to find God in the quiet moments of our lives. Then we followed Elijah on his heavenly journey. This story showed us that even when things seem impossible, with faith, all things can become possible. Elijah didn't need a spaceship to reach the heavens, did he? No, he simply trusted in God and was taken up in a chariot of fire. What a sight that must have been. Our third story took us to a darker time, the exile to Babylon. Even in the midst of great hardship and struggle, the people of Judah remained faithful. They showed us that sometimes we have to go through tough times, but those tough times don't define us. Our faith and our strength do. Then oh, what joy there was when we got to the return from exile. The people of Judah were allowed to go back home, to rebuild, to start again. It was a new beginning, a fresh start. It taught us that no matter how hard things get, there's always a chance for a new beginning. Our last stop was with Isaiah and his vision of God. This story reminded us of the majesty and glory of God. Isaiah saw God seated on a throne, high and exalted, and his heart was filled with wonder and awe. It's a reminder to us all of the greatness of God and his love for us. So what's the takeaway from all these stories? Well, they remind us to listen for God's voice in the quiet moments, to have faith even when things seem impossible, to stay strong during tough times, to embrace new beginnings, and to remember the greatness of God. These stories aren't just tales from long ago. They're lessons for us to carry in our daily lives. They're reminders of faith, of hope, of strength, and of love. And the most beautiful part? These stories are still being told, still being lived, by each and every one of us every single day. So as we end our journey today, let's carry these stories and their lessons in our hearts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing in faith. Goodbye.